Life Audio.
Welcome to the Team Us podcast, where we share how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Hi, everyone. We're Ted.
And Ashley.
Slater. That was slick, wasn't it?
Yes.
So today we're sharing 5 habits to help you improve your marriage.
So, Ted.
Yes.
I get all kinds of emails in my inbox because I've subscribed to all these different websites over the years. Yeah. And I'm one of those people who does not unsubscribe very often for a couple of reasons. One is laziness. That takes time. And sometimes I have unsubscribed from things and then I keep getting them, even though I unsubscribed. So I've given up.
Okay.
And then another, so I guess that's 2 reasons already. And the third one is sometimes, especially if it's another blogger or author or whatever, I don't want to hurt their feelings by not unsubscribing because I know you can see when people unsubscribe.
Oh, no. So what are you saying? Are you saying to those who subscribe to this, please don't unsubscribe because we will know and we'll be crushed?
No, I wasn't saying that at all. I wasn't even thinking that. But I got some email from some site. It might have actually been like National Geographic or something, which I can't even fully log in because you have to have a paid subscription to read the whole article.
Huh.
So I really do need to unsubscribe from that one.
Right.
But they had the top article was this topic of sleep divorce.
Well, this is in what publication?
This was in like National Geographic email that they sent out.
That's like animals and stuff, isn't it?
Well, I guess it's just
like
the world, it's culture. And anyway, so I did click on that, even though I couldn't read the full article because I don't have a paid subscription. But I was like, a sleep divorce? What is that?
That is an unusual term.
Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, so it's this kind of idea of couples sleeping in separate rooms in order to improve their relationship. Maybe somebody snores or something like that.
So primarily for physical reasons, like sleep apnea or snoring or
it seemed to be
screaming in your sleep or
stealing all the covers. It seemed to be that idea. And so I had to, of course, because I'm curious, Google it and see if there were other articles. There's a lot of articles in the last year about sleep divorce.
You don't use ChatGPT?
I use Google.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm behind the times. I'm a late adapter, as they would say. But yeah, I mean, we sleep in the same room.
Yes.
But we have had temporary situations where we have slept in separate rooms for a temporary time period to solve a temporary problem.
I remember one of our babies was really loud.
Yeah, because when they were really little, we would let them co-sleep with us. I mean, I was paranoid about blankets and all of that stuff.
Right.
But she was like perpetually congested or something.
And I am such a lover of sleep. I don't perform well if I'm at my sleepy time.
Yeah.
And then like if I've been sick and you need to not get sick, then we take a break from...
I might throw up the air mattress and sleep downstairs. But it's always kind of a temporary
right
solution. So it's kind of, I mean, I am not judging couples. This is their decision. If they can do it and still have a strong marriage, then yay.
Sure.
But it's kind of an interesting concept to see that kind of become a habit. And I actually did see a Facebook reel recently.
Okay.
That was just like a comedy thing. And it was this guy, it was like they just got married and he's like, oh, and they're going to bed and he's like, oh, I love how you breathe. I don't mind hearing you breathe all night. No. And then you get a couple years into the marriage, he's like, shouldn't we get a white noise machine? And then a few more years later, why don't you just turn that machine up? And then after that, how about you play AC/DC really loud? So, I mean, it is an issue that there is snoring.
Sure. No, I have periods when I snore. It tends to be when I go over 200 pounds.
Yeah. And I just have to wake you up so you reposition yourself.
Under 200 pounds, I tend not to snore as much.
Yeah. You have not been snoring lately.
Good.
You do steal the covers sometimes, but...
You've pushed them on me.
Agree to disagree on that. Okay. So sleeping in different rooms isn't something that we want to make a habit in our marriage.
In our marriage, right.
Right. But there are 5 habits that I want to talk about today that I think can improve marriages. So after this break, we'll talk about them. Okay, so I want to talk through 5 habits or 5 practices that if they become habits, I think have the potential to improve marriages.
Could we call this the 5? I was trying to go off the 5 love languages. I can't think of anything.
No, maybe something will come to you later. Okay, so the first one is map love.
So cartography, like really getting into cartography, map making and stuff? Like,
I don't know. Let's dig into it, and you can tell me if you think that that's what it is. I mean, that sounds kind of weird, map love, but what I'm referring...
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Weird and intriguing. Kind of like you.
Hey, now.
Okay, so what I'm referring to here is to build love maps, which was actually a new concept for me that I just heard about recently. And I heard about it through... Read the name for me because I've mispronounced her last name. It's Deborah.
Oh, is it fillet?
I think maybe.
It's not filet.
No. It says I need to just go and listen to her talk.
Let's say fillet.
Okay.
If we're wrong, she needs to contact us.
And let us know. But just, if you have not listened to the podcast before, or not a lot, she's solid, and I have a reputation of mispronouncing names. So if you hear me hesitate, it's because I'm pretty sure that whatever I pick is going to be wrong. Anyway, in one of her Instagram posts, because I follow her on Instagram because I think her content is really helpful. She's a counselor. She posted that this idea of build love maps originally comes from Dr. Gottman, who is, I guess, one of the leading relationship researchers out there. And build love maps is his term for getting to know your spouse's world. And the way it's explained on the Gottman Institute website wasn't in layman enough terms for me to put into practical way for myself. But I thought that the way that Deborah explained it was much more accessible. And in her Instagram post, she said, love mapping is when we keep track of the map, the path that leads to excitement, joy, and happiness for our spouse, and then act on it. It's the evidence of how well you know your spouse and keep track of their heart.
It's interesting. Yeah, I had jokingly brought up the 5 love languages, trying to find a connection with the 5 practices or whatever. But it sort of ties in. I mean, that's like the first step might be identify, something that your spouse tends to feel built up with, words of affirmation, physical affection, gifts, etc. But this is then like use cases.
Explain what you mean by that.
It's like computer.
It's been a while since
or here's an example walkthrough of an engagement with software. So a use case in this instance could be, maybe I know that you like to have a date that's somewhat planned. And so I say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to get a snack at this place. And then I've got a show that I got lined up. We got tickets already. We'll see that. And then we'll get some pizza afterwards.
Because I like plan. And I like lots of food on.
Right. And also some variation within the or opportunities for spontaneity.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. I hadn't thought.
It'd be like quality time.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but that makes it much more practical. I did have an example from Deborah's blog post, which was, she said, and this was back in May, this week my husband John brought me these roses knowing I would love their bright color, and then he picked up my favorite breakfast treat because he passed by it in the store the other day. No special reason other than he thought of me and knew I would enjoy it, and I did. I actually read that and I thought of you, and I actually left a comment. I was like, oh, my husband is really good at that. Because, yes.
Oh, right.
Because you will go to the store and be like, ooh, I bought this because I know you like it. Yeah. I feel like that works pretty well for me. I feel like I'm not as good at this. And I think maybe it's because you're not so much of a gift receiver. So sometimes it falls flat.
Right. And I may want a fedora, but I want a specific fedora.
Yeah, it's better if you buy yourself things sometimes.
Or a specific smoker.
Yeah. Well, even the album I bought you didn't quite go over because there was I was all excited and I bought you a Rush album, but then there was some technical problem with playing it and that became the focus.
Yeah.
So I need to figure out ways that don't involve gifts to do this better.
And I need to be careful with critique of what gift that you've given me when I'm like, this is mastered unusually.
And then I'm like, he doesn't
I see.
like it. No, I said, you do well at this, and I recognize I can do better. And maybe it's that love language thing. Maybe it's that I don't bring you things. Maybe it's more of words of affirmation, which will actually come into another habit that we're going to talk about later.
This is cool. Map love sort of built. I would say if you can start with the love languages to understand, that's sort of a starting place for understanding what builds your spouse up. And then you can map out some ways to, act.
Right. Well, and the Gottman Institute website did actually have a love map exercise to help create and strengthen our love maps. Although I think I like your approach better.
Thank you.
But they had, and I'll include the link in the show notes, but they had a few questions that you could ask yourself. They use the term partner, but I'm going to use spouse when I share a few of these. Mm-hmm. So you can name one of your spouse's hobbies, or describe in detail what your spouse did today or yesterday. What's your spouse's fondest unrealized dream? Ask yourself if you know these things, and if you can say these things.
Unrealized dream?
I mean, that just means that you're having what Greg Smalley calls heart talk and not just work talk. So,
wow.
Yeah, I just think, or what is one of your partner's favorite ways to be soothed? You like to
soak my feet.
Soak your feet.
I do.
Exactly.
Who's the guy, the head of England during World War II?
Churchill?
He liked to take 2-hour baths and do work and have his secretary transcribe letters and stuff while he's soaking in the bath.
Do soak your feet and work on your laptop at the same time. But you don't need a secretary.
Wouldn't mind one.
I think you'd be more efficient without one.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. So number 2, apologize right. Mm-hmm. And you've been talking about the 5 love languages. And this is actually going to bring in Dr. Gary Chapman, because several years ago, I worked on a project that I needed to learn the content of Dr. Chapman and Jennifer Thomas's book, The 5 Apology Languages.
What?
Yeah.
That's a book?
It's a book. And what I learned stuck with me. It was really interesting. I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast before. But essentially, the book talks about what we need in order to consider an apology sincere. So I actually watched an interview that Dr. Chapman did with Kirk Cameron, and I'll put the link for that in the show notes too. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Chapman explained, when someone apologizes to us, we're asking in our minds, are they sincere? Because if we judge them as sincere, it's much easier to forgive them. And he says that they discovered that people have different ideas of what a sincere apology looks like. And he said that we typically learn that from our parents, how they raise us and teach us to apologize. So often, in marriage, we'll come with different ideas of what a sincere apology is because we've learned different ways of apologizing. So when I say apologize right, what I mean is learn what your spouse considers a sincere apology in various situations. Because I do think it's situational in some senses. Say that I eat the last something that you've been saving. Okay. I might be like, oh, I'm so sorry I ate that. I didn't realize you were going to eat that. Yeah. But say that I forget an anniversary. You're more likely to forget an anniversary. That might require what can I do to make it up to you type thing.
It's kind of funny. Every once in a while, I find myself shocked awake, and I'm like, is it a special day? Is it anniversary? Is it a birthday?
Yeah.
No.
Well, for those listening who have not read the book, because I think the story's in the book, you did forget my birthday the first year we were married.
But I had an excuse.
You had a good reason.
We were suffering through a hurricane.
Yes. No, I'm just saying that's why we're talking about why you might wake up with that panicky feeling. Okay, so
yes,
to help with people trying to figure out what their spouse's apology language is, I'm going to share the 5 that they talk about.
That'd be helpful. I've always sort of figured there are 2, vague and specific.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if there are 5, I'm interested in hearing them.
So the first one is, I'm sorry, or expressing regret. For some people, if there's no regret expressed, it's not sincere.
So there's got to be an emotional aspect to it. You can't just say sorry.
Yeah. Right. You have to somehow express regret. And the person has to feel like you are expressing regret. Okay. So number 2, second apology language is, I was wrong, or accepting responsibility. So Dr. Chapman says for some people, if you don't accept responsibility in your apology, they don't believe you're sincere. So you can't just say, I'm sorry. You have to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Or I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
All right. So we're building.
That's how it feels to me. So maybe there are some people who need less and some people who need more.
Okay.
I just think it's fascinating because before I was introduced to this content, I didn't think about the fact that people do interpret apologies differently based on what's given.
Right.
So, okay. Number 3 is how can I make it right, or restitution? So for some people and in some situations, if the apology doesn't include the offer to make it right, it's not a sincere apology. And he actually gave the example of a husband in that interview I watched, forgetting an anniversary and how I'm sorry and I was wrong weren't enough. Like he also had to be like, what can I do to make this up to you?
Got it. That's not always an option though. Because,
no.
You know, there could be, if I said something a little insensitive, there's no real way to bring restitution to that.
But that's where the 4th apology language comes in.
Let's hear it.
Very nice, knowing that you hadn't actually knew the content before we were getting there. Okay, so 4 is I will take steps to prevent a reoccurrence, or they call this planned change.
Okay.
You know, so that would be like, okay, I said that hurt your feelings. What can I do next time so that I don't say something like that? Or how can I change the way I talk to you so that doesn't happen again?
Right. And that can be as easy as just saying, I'm sorry, I did such and such. Not my intention to hurt you, but I did. I'll do my best to do better.
Yeah. I feel like this is one, though, that you can't figure out if it's really sincere until you see if the plan change happens. So I could see how this is one where there could still be tension until you go through a similar situation and the other person acts differently. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, that's my own assessment
of it. Take your word for it that you'll try to do better.
Yeah. And then hopefully I do. Yeah. Okay. And number 5 is, can you find it in your heart to forgive me? So for some, it's only a sincere apology if forgiveness is requested.
Interesting. Are you that way?
I actually, you know what? I actually took the online apology languages quiz.
And
I'll put that link in the show notes too. And it turns out that my number one, the one I rated the highest in was planned change. Knowing that, okay, this happened, next time it'll be different.
Okay.
That was the one that I got the highest. And then the second I got was accept responsibility.
Right.
So I think I've noticed about myself recently, I don't need to have people say, will you forgive me? Maybe because
it's kind of implied.
I'm going to forgive them because we're told in scripture to forgive people. I mean, that doesn't always mean specifically with like people outside the family that you can put up boundaries. You can, if it's just, you can forgive someone and be like, well, the relationship has changed.
It's kind of interesting you brought this up. I forget what it was, but at some point I said something or did something to one of our daughters and I felt compelled to apologize, and I did. And then the daughter said, I forgive you. And I was like, I didn't even ask you to forgive me, but you extended that. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, maybe
felt a little weird, but she said, I forgive you, Papa.
But maybe that's because sometimes when the kids apologize to me about something, they don't ask me for forgiveness, but I get the sense that they want it.
Okay.
So maybe, and so sometimes I'll be like, I forgive you.
Nice.
Because I get the sense that they want it. So maybe they're modeling, as we said, we learn it from our parents.
Boom.
And I don't want there to be a question of whether, especially as parent-child, whether we have forgiven them or we're holding on to things. Yeah, it's really interesting. Anyway, we're going to take a short break. And when we return, I'll share 3 more habits that I think can help improve our marriages. So we're talking about habits that can improve our marriages. Number 3 is get grateful. And I think that we all know that feelings of gratitude are healthy for us in our relationships. But we don't just want to feel grateful. We want to act grateful and express gratitude.
Sure. I think that's brings a sense of positivity to your marriage and really have a positive, uplifting kind of experience with you than a downer. kind of
Yeah.
depressing and negative.
Well, and this is an area I've been trying to get better at.
Yeah.
Because I was reading a book that I often quote this season on the podcast in the last 10 episodes or whatever, which is Shanti Feldhein's The Surprising Secret of Highly Happy Marriages.
Okay.
I don't know why I said it like that. It just felt like it needed to be read like that. She noted that a handful of simple day-to-day actions increase the likelihood that our spouse feels that we care deeply about them instead of feeling like we don't. And she said that one of those top things for men is hearing their wives say thank you. She said a wife will make an impact on her husband's happiness when she notices his effort and sincerely thanks him for it. So I've been trying in the last few weeks to get better at being like, thank you. I think there was one day where I went out, I started the car, and noticed it was filled with gas. And I was like, I'm going to go in before I leave and tell Ted, thank you for filling up the gas tank. I mean, I could have just left or texted you, but I was like, I'm still here.
Okay, so like 3 days ago, you did laundry and you folded the shirts and all that stuff. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Sincere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I can't remember.
Because I didn't thank you at the time. It's like a chore that you just do, but
Right.
you did it. So
Yeah. And I think it goes both ways. I mean, I think in her book, there were other things that wives listed as the higher things, because this might come down to, for men, the desire to feel respected. And when you're thanking them and noticing what you do, it's kind of being respectful of you. I mean, I do like that you thanked me for doing the laundry.
love and respect.
There we go.
For waffles and spaghetti, or I don't know, Venus and Mars. These are all like men are. And
I know, right? How they're different.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Number 4. I know that last one was short and sweet, but you don't really have to say a lot about
Nope.
expressing gratitude.
Get grateful.
Just do it.
Go ahead.
Assume the best. And this is one that we've talked a lot about on the podcast, and I've talked about in the book. And I feel like it's been something that has come up again recently for us because we've had situations where either we're not thinking the best or one of us thinks the other person's not thinking the best, and it's caused conflict. So I think it's just a helpful one to be reminded of regularly. And if our listeners heard our interview with John and Brett Seidel back in May, they mentioned how assuming the best about each other has made a big difference in their communication, especially in light of John's anxiety and OCD. It's a really good interview. If you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to it.
It was a good interview.
We're just flying through these end ones. All right, number 5.
Number 5.
All right, take a walk.
Could we say take a break, or would that be copyrighted?
I don't think take a break's fine. Yeah. I mean, I was literally thinking,
the musical.
Right? I was literally thinking take a walk, because when we talked to James and Arlene Pelotain,
they brought up.
James mentioned the power of just walking around the block. I mean, and talking. And I think we could do better, although it's very hot in Arizona in the summer.
Hot. It's going to be like 110 next week.
Yeah. When this actually airs, though, it'll be like 116.
Right.
We're recording a little bit earlier than you're hearing this.
Yeah, it's 3 a.m.
That's not what I meant. But, maybe that's where we get metaphorical and take this idea of taking a break together. Setting aside time. You could go take a drive or do some other activity where you just kind of step away, put your phones away, step away, and just, I don't know.
Yeah, you brought up going on I bought, the 2007 Toyota Corolla Solara convertible a few years ago. Need a lot of work. But it's a convertible. It's got a big dent in the hood and it's got scratches and stuff, but it's a convertible. And was it last week you said, hey, we should go for a ride?
Yeah.
Top down, drive around.
Play the music you like to play when you've got the...
Yeah. It's funny because I don't really like reggaeton, but I kind of like it when I'm in the car with the top down.
It's the context of where you're listening to it. Yeah. So to recap, 5 habits that can improve your marriage.
Should we alternate them?
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Map love.
Number 2, apologize right.
Number 3, get grateful.
4, assume the best.
And number 5, take a break.
Or walk. Or drive.
There you go.
Take some time. Maybe that's how I should have said it. Take some time.
Ooh.
All right. After this break, we'll be back with this week's Us Time Challenge. For this week's Us Time Challenge, I think listeners should pick one of these practices to put into habit this week. Which one should we try?
Oh, no.
Or try to do better at?
My mind says take a walk.
Yes.
Or a drive in the convertible. Because it's starting to get hot, I'm like, ugh. And because I don't like waking up early in the morning, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
But maybe that one.
Okay.
Because it's the one that I haven't been good at.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do that. We could just take a walk at like 5 in the morning because that's when that's when it's not hot. And it gets light very early. I'm just saying that to tease you. You'd be more likely to take it in the evening.
Yes, please.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Team Us podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'd love to have you leave a review over at Apple Podcasts. We're looking forward to next time as we keep talking about how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Team Us with Ted and Ashley Slater is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review the podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.